Welcome back to another Rush Hour Pod. I'm TW. This is Justin. We're here to give you guys the latest in tech from non technical people. We've been in tech for over 30 plus years. You're looking at Facebook? No, definitely not Facebook. We're looking at Twitch. We're looking at Discord. We're looking at Zynga. A bunch of the top companies around StubHub, you name it. We've probably either worked with them or worked at the company itself. So we're here to talk this week. Layoffs. They're back. Scary times out here, Justin. What are you hearing?
Yeah, man. This has been a common theme and something we've talked about for a while now. Just what's happening within the industry generally and some of the competing elements of changes in the economy and strides in AI and tech companies no longer being seen as necessarily growth companies. They're more mature, which means there's kind of more pressure on their operating margins. But this week in particular, there were two companies that talked about, that initiated some of the layoffs. I think Meta, 5% of their workforce, about 3,600 folks, and then Workday, another 1,700 or so. And this is just kind of the same trend that
Yep.
we've seen over time, and frankly, that I think will continue to happen. I'm not trying to be some kind of oracle here and forecast something that frankly is kind of negative for a lot of folks in our industry, but it just seems like that's the trend, and it's a bit of a harrowing time right now in the industry based
Right.
on some things I've heard. Where do you come out on
Yeah,
what's
so
happening now?
I mean the way I should say Meta the way the Meta layoffs came out, it was kind of like, hey, we're hiring a bunch of AI engineers and we're laying off, en mass a bunch of low performers. I guess is what they're
Yeah,
labeling it as, or instead of I don't know, seemed like some strange messaging there to label everybody prior to a layoff. That seems not cool, but
yeah.
I don't know if that's the case or if that's just a redundancy in roles. But like that seemed like it could have been communicated a little bit better for their employees. What do you think?
I think so, man. It's not. I don't think we're in a macroeconomic environment where it's going to be super easy for people to find jobs, right? And
Right.
all you need to do is go on TikTok for more than 5 minutes and then see all these, kind of sad videos of folks getting laid off, like and
Yeah.
recording the sessions, et cetera. And a lot more of that, is in other industries. And now it's when I see them, it's kind of only tech. So within that context, it just seems like a really harsh way to kind of let people go. I feel like, listen, if someone doesn't necessarily do a great job for your company, it kind of is what it is. And maybe the benefit that you get is that, okay, they're no longer there and that should kind of be enough. But to set a, but to kind of make a broad announcement that, yeah, we're going to be, all the people who have been laid off are kind of like the lowest performing people there. I mean, how does that set these folks up just like at the human level
Right.
for their next steps? And I was very struck by that this week. It just didn't feel great
Yeah.
especially because like it was like right before the weekend too, Super Bowl weekend and everything, and time with family and hanging. I can imagine that looming over people's heads, and I was just struck by the way they did that. It just seemed unnecessary to
Yeah.
set it up
No,
like
I
that.
agree. They did them dirty. Let's just keep it real. Like that was not cool. But also, is it a sign of things to come? I mean, and like now AI kind of taking over, and people that don't use it are people that do use it, people that have it as supplementary. How does that affect them as workers? Is it replacing them? Is it helping them? Is it like all of that is very murky? I feel like right now,
Yeah,
they're turning around and saying, "Hey, we need more AI engineers." Um, so clearly, that's a focus for them.
yep,
Um, and like a lot of the sort of performance evaluations are pretty subjective for people. So it's really tough, right? Because it could be boil down to some office politics and things like that. But to label everybody as, hey, these aren't they are lowest performers is that's a tough one. I can't
I
say I've
agree.
seen it before.
Yeah, but and to kind of build on your point, like when you talked about AI engineers specifically, I think that is the key there. That it is a critical imperative for their business to, bring in the sharpest minds who can work on the hardest problems in that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's frankly nothing wrong necessarily with reducing headcount, although, there's a lot of pain felt in our industry right now. But I think that the way in which it was set up is just unnecessary, in that, and they didn't need to do that. One of the things I read today that was kind of interesting, there's a guy, he's kind of pretty well known on LinkedIn, I think on YouTube, for building businesses, kind of a bit of influencer on the platform. This guy, Greg Eisenberg, had a post on LinkedIn that was kind of talking about, we chatted about this a little before we started filming, the reductions in the number of software engineering openings. Like if you pull
Yep.
data from Indeed, and I think they've decreased 70% from kind of the height of like around 2022-ish period,
Wow.
which is a huge drop, obviously. But one of the things that he talked about, which I think I agree with, is that with these AI tools now, and with the focuses of these companies in terms of the strategy, a lot more like this, there's a whole middle class layer of engineers that doesn't necessarily like need or can exist anymore within this context. And
Right.
additionally, entry level engineers may not, I mean, they
Yeah.
exist, but not, not nearly as many. And so like that's just kind of the deal now at all these companies, right? These
Right.
tools and ability to kind of build products and be way more efficient. Right now, someone's probably 5 times more efficient than they were 2-3 years ago, and so they just don't need as many. You don't need as many bodies. And I think the other thing that is kind of interesting, though, is what these tools also do is allow, I think, a new category of, one of the things you called out, which I also agree with, a new category of, solopreneurs who are able to come out and leverage these tools
Yep.
and get businesses off the ground, like really meaningful businesses that can do millions of dollars in ARR with very small teams very quickly. So it's, those two kind of like competing things are very interesting. One, for the larger corporations, it kind of shrinks down the number of employees that they need to kind of do these jobs, but then it also enables this entire other class to have literally all the tools right now to kind of create any
Right.
type of software business that you can imagine
Yeah.
at a relatively low cost and short timeline of getting things stood up. Where 10 years ago for us, it would have been way more difficult to get things off the ground.
Yeah, I think the impact that AI has had on developers honestly caught me a little off guard. It came faster than I expected because, like, maybe when I thought about AI, I didn't think about it in terms of coding. I just um, thought about it in terms of strategy and copywriting and all of those things versus coders being able to developers being able to pump out a lot more code and that affecting the job market so much. And that the Bay Area is built on developers and software developers and engineers, and to
Yeah.
see them get cut is kind of shocking. Like, because those were the guys that got free meals and crazy packages and
Mm-hmm.
everything. They're really the um, Silicon Valley being built is really on their backs, and now you
Yeah.
don't need as many of them. It's just
Yeah.
terrifying.
I think it's that. And it's like a total shift in terms of where the value now sits in this ecosystem. And not to say that I necessarily know for sure, but I was listening to another podcast. It was the Lenny's podcast. The guy is like the product guy who's kind of well known, who does has a really awesome kind of Substack, talks about different product related topics. But the person he had on was a researcher who worked at OpenAI and at Anthropic early days, and was now at OpenAI. And he was like, "Hey, with all these changes going on, where do you think where what is a skill set that is important now?" And basically, they said, "Hey, it's soft skills. It's soft skills that are going to be important now because even as we're getting more efficient, you still need the ability to kind of lead people and teams and organize strategy and there's like a human element that's really important there, and also ability to think creatively." And it's funny because in the time we've been growing up in Silicon Valley in our professional life, it's like, hey, all that other stuff that's not the hard skills, that's unimportant.
Yeah. Oh.
Sometimes like a very aggressive way, letting us know,
Yep.
especially on the marketing side, like, oh, you
Yep.
guys like aren't that valuable. You're kind of a dime a dozen. And now things have shifted a bit in terms of in terms of those dynamics, where kind of like that engineering skill set, a lot of it is being able to, um, you know, the barriers that skill set are much lower, and not needing as many folks doing those jobs. So I think it's very interesting to see that shift.
Yeah, it is, and it makes sense. I think people are valuing more relationship based people, right? Like, connecting the dots and understanding people, and that makes all the difference, right? Like, if you really know somebody and you trust them, that goes a long way today in a world
Yeah,
where things feel like everyone's just a number, and somebody that's going above and beyond for, like you said, the soft skills, like that stuff
yeah,
sticks out. Like, you remember the people that like send you the extra thank yous and are always on time, and being on top of things and following up and being nice and
hmm
asking how you're doing. Like, all those things all of a sudden can become very obvious.
yeah.
Um and and like,
When everything else is kind of commoditized.
yeah, when everything else
Yeah,
feels like, hey, I could just use AI, I could do that. But like, when somebody comes and genuinely makes you feel like a valued human being, an employee or person, you remember it now, which
yeah.
I don't know what that says about us, but
That's
as
fair enough.
people, but that skill is becoming more and more important, and um, it is interesting. Like, it's
Yeah.
something that a lot of people are going to have to adjust to.
So where do you think this all goes? Like, do you think we've hit a plateau now in terms of the some of the kind of mass layoffs, and now it's it will be more in a steady state, or do you think that this will continue to kind of be a rolling basis, and each quarter or even monthly we'll see more and more layoffs?
I think it's going to shift around a lot. It's going to be overcorrections. They're going to be undercorrection. I think we're going to see layoffs in certain areas, and they're going to realize, oh wait, we're missing up, on the soft skill. Maybe we need more customer service and marketing, and maybe we need more sales. Like, I feel like these are the areas where we're going to shift around a lot.
Yeah.
It seems like the QA and um, you know developers themselves are going to have to like shift how they work a little bit,
Mm.
and maybe like working with these tools are going to be more important. So I know the AI agents and all those things over adjusted, and people are like, oh, customer service can just be all taken over by AI. I feel like that's going to shift back, and like people are going to realize, oh wait a minute, we need real voices, we need real people leading these programs, and
Mm.
we can't just completely rely on AI. There's a human element that's going to be missing. It's probably going to take a while for it to show up in CSAT scores and all those things. But
Yeah.
I think this stuff is going to change. Like, we're still really early in this balance of like AI or humans, AI humans. It's going to like shift back and forth. That's just my take on how this thing goes.
Yeah. I think I agree with that to the extent that we're kind of in this thrash period of no one necessarily knows kind of how what is the ideal kind of like optimal experience. It's interesting because I don't know if this is the right analogy, but it kind of reminds me of just coming out of the pandemic era where it's like, okay, well, can everybody kind of be fully remote and it works? And it was like, well, not really.
Yep.
Some companies you just have to be in everybody has
Yep.
to be in person. Others hybrid works. Maybe there are some where remote works, but that not the vast majority. And I think we're going through the same process with AI. That being said, and I don't know if this necessarily detracts from your point, but maybe just like a little different spin on it, is as I still think if I'm putting my mind if I'm putting myself in the mindset of founders and kind of the executives at some of these larger companies, everybody's trying to push that Elon model of reducing
Yeah.
their company by 70% as
Right.
much as possible to figure it out, right? Because uh, they can earn more within that context. They're doing in their minds they're doing right by shareholders by driving operational efficiencies, and it also provides a lot more opportunity for research and opex and like other capitalization you know towards kind of long-term things that they want to do on the AI side that are pretty capital intensive because you're acquiring these like data centers and and GPUs and everything. So I feel like they're still going to push it a fair amount.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like it. We still don't really know on the front end how all this AI stuff is going to apply to our everyday lives, right? It feels
Yeah.
right now very algorithmic back end, like hard to see outside of like Chat GPT.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know how this thing is going to appear in our faces, and I feel like that's where the big change. I feel like we just don't know yet. We're
Hmm.
so early in this. Um, the channels that this thing is going to evolve into are still to come. So I think that's going to really change how, frankly, how we use the internet. Like that seems like something that is in flux right at the moment. Would you agree? Like I definitely feel it. Like how Google
Oh
search
yeah.
is different, like Facebook, how you use
100%.
Instagram and take all of it feels like it's in flux.
I'll tell you the thing that tripped me out the most recently. So I don't know if this is like a podcast or me reading like a Twitter thread or whatever else it was, but it was within a marketing context, and it was talking about in short term, these new agents that companies were going to use. Well, it just individuals starting to kind of like use agents, operators to kind of automate tasks that are going out and doing things for them. And then the companies that are serving, like from a marketing perspective, the companies that are serving them ads, et cetera, are sending out the agents as well. And then eventually what you have is just agents interacting with agents. It's not
Yeah,
even like human interactions or humans
right,
to your marketing
right.
to like the agent representative of that. And I was like, wow, if that's the case, like I don't even know, like how do you strategize and plan for what that means? I mean,
Right.
but it makes sense if that's where things are heading, which it seems like maybe the timeline's a little longer than some people have postulated because that's because they want to do that. But it seems like there is a future not too distant where that could be the case. How
Yeah.
do you navigate that?
Yeah. Bots talking to bots, right? It is wild.
Essentially, yeah,
Yeah. It's a wild world right now. It's the Wild West.
it
We're
is
all
the
kind
Wild
of just
West.
navigating it. This is that, and then and in terms of like jobs out there, what is your feeling on the job market, and how should people think about this with like,
Yeah,
hey, I got to prep my resume, now I'm fighting all these Facebook uh, or Meta employees and Workday employees.
yeah.
How should people think about their careers right now? Is this a hold tight,
Okay,
appreciate your job?
yeah. So I have, I guess, two ways of looking at this, depending on kind of the individual person's proclivities toward a more entrepreneurial path or steady state. If you are more kind of like, hey, I just want to go in and do my job and not rock the boat, now is the best time to just like stay in your job and just make sure you're good,
Right.
because it's not a employees market, it's an employer's market, and there are a lot of changes. So if you leave and you're trying to get another job right now, I think it could be a little trickier. That being said, if you do have some entrepreneurial proclivities, then I think there's no better time right now relative to the tools that you have at your disposal to kind of go out and hustle and kind of leverage them to, for your own efficiency or, for creation of new products, et cetera, to just kind of put things out there during this kind of thrash period. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. And so I would, suggest for people who do have that, like this may be the right time to jump into the arena if you really want to get after it on the entrepreneurial side. But I think it just depends on how you lean personally. I don't think there's like
Yeah.
one path necessarily there.
Yeah, it seems like another. I mean, everyone talks about getting multiple streams of income. It seems like, yeah, if you're not so sure about your current position, start thinking about those side hustles. Start thinking about your brand. Start thinking about those things, and act on them, because you just don't know in this day and age, right? If you can
Yeah,
add a few $100s here and there, that stuff adds up. So yeah, I think everybody needs to be concerned, right? Like you should always be head on a swivel. No one's safe. Keep one eye on out there, and figuring out what's next. And
yeah,
uh, that's probably the best way to be, right?
I think so. And for those of you who are trying to figure out, hey, how much time should I invest in like learning about these tools and other things? I was, you and I spent a fair amount of time kind of playing around with different tools and trying things out, help our audience, but then for our own learning. And based on my experience, what I would say is, do I think these tools are going to fully replace everyone? No, I think there may be some areas where that happens, but not kind of en masse in the way that like no one has jobs. But I will tell you that if you are using these tools, it's going to make you way more efficient, and you're going to be better whether you're doing some entrepreneurial or just at your day job. You're going to be way more productive than your peers who aren't, and so it
Yeah.
makes sense to kind of lean into it from that perspective of just like allowing yourself to be as competitive with the changing dynamics of this market as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay on your toes. Like, practice, practice, practice on all these different things. These are tools for you to use as a benefit, right? They're saying you're not going to get replaced by AI. You're going to get replaced by a person who uses AI better than you.
It's
That seems
facts.
to be the
It's
case,
facts.
right? Like you
Yeah.
just make sure you know how to use it, what it does, its capabilities, and start doing some research on how it can help you both on your personal side and on your business side. I think that's probably the best way to go and see what happens. Give us feedback. We'd love to hear. What are your thoughts? If there's anything you need from us, let us know. Anything? Oh, what other news topics did we have this week?
Yeah, there were maybe we choose one of the two, and I'll let you figure out. You can choose. So there were kind of two other headlines that were kind of interesting this week. One was around Elon putting together a consortium of him and some of his friends to put a bid on OpenAI for around for $97 billion, and try to put a kibosh on the transition of the company from nonprofit back to for profit. That was one. And the other one that's also interesting is that YouTube released some data. This is kind of comes shortly after or Alphabet's overall earnings, but it's now positioned as a TV first platform. And what I mean by that is, for the first time in its history, there are more people who consume YouTube content on their television than their phones. And that kind of blew my mind up a little bit, just relative to
Yeah.
like, I mean, I use it a lot on my laptop and like a desktop, but not, and I do on TV, but not as much. But I was like, wow, I can't believe that actually finally surpassed. So either of those, I think, is maybe kind of helpful
I
to
like.
kind of end the conversation. But what do you think?
Let's do the YouTube. Let's do the TV one because
Yeah,
I feel like content is just in a weird place right now because I know
yeah,
my content habits are very different now than they were 10 years ago.
100%.
Um, it just seems like outside of if we take sports away, I'm not sure there's anything stronger than YouTube. Like I watch so much YouTube now,
Me too.
and I
Either
do.
for
I
learning,
definitely watch it on TV
entertainment.
now. Yeah, I
Yeah,
watch it on TV. It's a great, like it's my little bubble that I have that captures all the things I'm interested in. And I can just kind of you know jump in there and watch what I want.
yeah.
What are your thoughts? Where do you think this goes? Like, what's the future of YouTube?
I think that for a younger generations, YouTube is is TV. Like it's synonymous with TV. Like when people think about how we thought about watching TV growing up, that's what they're doing. It's the new behavior. So it kind of like only makes sense. So I think people just continue to lean into that. One of the things that was interesting is that 1 billion hours of content is streamed daily to TV screens now,
Wow.
and like that's a pretty insane amount. When I think about this, I think about who could catch YouTube like in this space and surpass them. I don't know. I mean, it has such a stranglehold on the behaviors and habits of younger generation, and then like us, we're spending more and more time on that medium. So I don't necessarily see them being, supplanted. And maybe some other data that's kind of useful or interesting relative to this. So YouTube Premium and music subscriptions passed 100 million users, and YouTube TV has grown 8 million subscribers despite the price hikes. And I think, do you pay for YouTube, right? Without
I
ads.
pay YouTube Premium and I
Yeah.
have Hulu for my TV. I used to use YouTube TV when it was
Yep.
29, then they raised it to 89, and then I got Hulu for 20, and now they're both 89. So like they kind of crept up all the pricing on live
Yeah.
TV. You know,
It's interesting, right? Because if you think about how much you're paying, right, you're almost paying that more now than you did for cable. But like
sure.
maybe you're happier and also have like the flexibility to cross platforms, and that's what consumers
Yes.
ultimately really wanted.
Yes,
What do you think
absolutely.
about that? Yeah.
No, no, I think that's absolutely right. Like if you said, "Hey, cable TV is now $29.99, switch back." Now I'm not so sure I want that because sometimes I want to on my phone, on the plane, on when I'm
Uh-huh.
traveling, when I go to an Airbnb, I can just log in and use my account. Like, um, yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic, right? Like if they flipped it around and said, "Hey, let's go back to your cable provider for half the price," would you do it? I don't know how many people do it.
I don't think I would do it. I think it's because of the flexibility and
Yeah.
just, when you think about entertainment consumption, for
Yes.
past generations, it was a singular place where you sat around one set box,
Right.
and that's where you get your entertainment. Now, your entertainment is, you have access to it all the time and across any different content medium. And I think everyone's just become so accustomed to that. It's part of culture. It's part of media consumption that to kind of go back to the old world, even if it was less expensive, most people wouldn't do it. And a lot of people just, or they just like, they not only would they wouldn't do it, they would just like not pay for. They just like wouldn't rather not pay
Right.
to
That's why
like if they had
YouTube.
to go
I
back.
think that's
Yeah,
why YouTube as the catch-all is incredible, because
yeah,
if you're not paying for a subscription and you're not paying for Disney Plus and all of these things, you just go on YouTube and it's free. You watch some ads and you get access to, like you said, millions and millions of videos every day.
yeah,
Not sure you need cable. I'm not sure you
yeah,
need live. If you're not interested in watching live TV,
yep,
it is a catch-all, right? You can really
yeah.
do a lot with just your YouTube account.
So my question is, right, like relative to the other streaming platforms. So let's say we take, look at like Disney Plus and Hulu and Netflix. I would say those kind of like the biggest,
Right.
YouTube competitors within that kind of long form content medium.
Yep.
Do you think they could outcompete Hulu for a share of time, or do you think that like Google within this new regulatory environment tries to acquire another one of the players, like acquire Netflix or acquire, a Hulu, for example, try to figure out structure some kind of deal there, and then they just further entrench themselves, or like any M&A activity or things that it could be interesting now?
No, I mean, YouTube TV for them, it's just about content acquisition. I don't think they need Hulu.
Mm,
they need the, I think getting bids for, the sports networks
yeah,
is
yeah,
probably the move, right? That seems to be the next big play in local TV, like getting all the local TV rights and getting everything together. That seems to be where people are like tuning into live TV, which is to
yeah.
get your sports, to get your local news. So it seems like there's some work there, right, to figure out where that is. And I don't think there's any loyalty like, oh, I love the way Hulu works or YouTube TV or Sling TV. Like, I don't think anyone cares at this point. It's
Yeah.
just like, how do I get access to it all? I think where YouTube can win is you have your YouTube account. And then if you tie your
Hmm.
TV all into one, that seems like the biggest win. You have to go to Hulu and do it. But we'll see.
Yeah.
This is the content battle is really interesting because it's got Apple TV, you
Hmm.
got Hulu, you've got YouTube, you got Sling TV, you have Peacock. Like you've got all these
Yeah.
this battle right now of content. To see who comes out on top is going to be really interesting.
Yeah. I think you nailed it with the IP piece. That is the real differentiator, and like unique IP where people, especially when I see like live experience stuff, the
Yes.
sports. That's why I feel like that's why that Hulu has live sports. That campaign really hit, and it's still something they're leaning into because they kind of recognize that really early, that is the differentiated content that could be a driver in switching over to using that platform
Yeah,
relative to others.
yeah. Let's not forget Amazon in this. They've sort of
Oh
built,
yeah,
yeah, Amazon Prime TV. Like they get exclusive movies and original programming, and they're sort of building out a stable of TV shows and movies that that's part of their Prime package. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot happening in that content space that I think we got to keep an eye. And then there's also TikTok, right? Yeah,
I
we
was
just
thinking
don't,
that too. Yeah, I was thinking that too. If they kind of figure out some type of deal that they move into like more long form content, and they
right.
move to kind of like solidify their place in other mediums where we watch content, like whether that be television or more desktop web or whatever else. Like, yeah, they could become a player too. They can start acquiring content because they surely got a ton of eyeballs.
Yeah, they have. It's just, you could see TikTok Live, TikTok TV, like, subscription package. You add it on, you can watch TikTok on TV, and you could scroll through on your phone. Like, it's pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot to
Yeah,
keep up
watch this
with.
space.
Yeah, watch the space for sure. But appreciate the convo.
Yeah, man.
Anything else? Otherwise, follow us, like, subscribe, comment below, and then obviously all the LinkedIn the content that Justin does every day. You got to check it out. I'll link all that below, and we will see you next week.
See you
All
next
right,
week.
Justin.
Later.